What's up? I'm with Pete from Envision Painting. Thanks for being here, Pete. I totally appreciate you, man. This is so much fun. And I put Pete on the spot today because I thought, you know what? I'm having a great conversation with Pete, and some of these nuggets of gold, painting gold he's given me, I thought, you know what? Let me just be able to put this on a video and share it with everybody else. So, dude, thanks. I appreciate you doing that. That's super cool.
All right, you got it. Ask away.
All right, cool. So the last piece you were talking about, like with buyers right now are the people that you think could benefit from Envision Painting's service the most. And you brought up a couple of really good points. First, on the sales side, because I work with a lot of sales on the sales side, our buy team works with a lot of buyers. So tell me about the buy side, like why it's so much better for people to get in at certain times, and how does that look?
So when we typically work with home buyers, usually the realtor would refer us, or they find us online. They contact us at some point when they're in the buying process, usually early on, to try to figure out what it's going to cost to paint. Yeah. So usually what we'll do is we'll work with them. We'll figure out a way to get in there and take a look, whether it's at the inspection period or another time when there's access, and we'll get them pricing and options for anything that they want.
So, quick question, Sue, will you go in during inspection periods?
Yeah, if they contact us early enough, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, sometimes the houses are vacant and there's a lockbox, or which time we can go in at any time. There's plenty of times actually when somebody's buying an occupied home and there's no access, the inspection period is over, and we can actually quote the house just off of like the listing link, the Zillow link, or the realtor listing. We'll look at the pictures, figure out the square footage, and kind of do a phone consultation to see what they're wanting done. And in most cases, we can, if not give them a firm price up front, at least give them a ballpark range until we get in and see it in person. But most of the time, we'll give them a firm price if it's not.
Dude, that rocks. I had no idea. Like, yeah, that would be so much more helpful. I mean, especially with our buyers, because like I remember when we bought the place that Rach and I are in, it's like we wanted that place like painted before we moved our stuff in, right? Yeah. I didn't want to mess with that. You know what I mean? Like, so that's on point.
So when people get a hold of us with enough notice, we can work out all those details while they're in the buying process and schedule the job to start the day after closing. And that's typically how we do things with buyers.
Nice. So, hey, here's a question for you. So are you open to getting paid out of escrow as well? Like for,
absolutely. Yeah, we can do that. And we also have, if they want longer to pay, we've got a setup with a third-party bank where they can get 12 months, same as cash financing. Yep. And there's also a 5-year loan program if they wanted to stretch it out and get low payments. But otherwise, payment through escrow is totally fine as well.
That's money. So right now, I mean, the market's so hot right now that buyers asking for closing costs in and of itself is challenging because there's so many buyers. I mean, you know firsthand, it's like so many buyers are coming to the table with like strong offers. So, you know, back I'd say when we were getting closing costs for buyers, when we're going then through the inspection period and figuring out how much things are going to cost, it was tough to just get a credit because we'd already exhausted the buyer credit with all of their closing costs, and they had to bring in at least their bare minimum in, you know, down payment. So with this, a buyer essentially, even if they're getting all of their closing costs paid, they could ask the seller for more when it comes down to it during inspections and have the seller pay you out of their pocket at the close on the HUD or on the final settlement statement and still get all of the credit that they were going to in the first place. So that may be a strategy for us at Capstone. I mean, that sounds like if we've already exhausted all of the credit that buyer can get from that seller, and we're trying to make ends meet, now we can offer, hey, let's have the seller paint the house and not really paint it, but at least get them the credit that pays you at the closing, and then our buyer just picks the colors and they're off to the races.
Yeah, absolutely. Or think about it as a landlord that's had their house rented for 5 years, the tenants move out and it's really old and dated. He needs to paint it anyway. why not have us do it and pay us through escrow so it's nothing really out of his pocket?
Yeah,
Get it
dude,
nice and fresh for the market and just delay the cost.
okay. I mean, and that's unique. Well, I mean, I know you, so I mean, eventually you'll get paid if it's on one of the Capstone ones, right? We wouldn't leave you
Yeah,
hanging. There's no
usually we do that with the realtors that we know and trust.
Yeah.
But worst case scenario, we'll just give them a 90-day payment term and
Okay.
maybe just keep a credit card to put on file. So if for some reason it falls out of escrow a couple times, then maybe we could just charge a card instead. But
Okay.
we're pretty flexible, and nowadays most houses are selling pretty quick. If we think there's going to be an issue with it, then we'll just have that discussion up front.
Okay. Sweet, dude. That's that's helpful because knowing that you guys, that's your best client, that'd be an easy one for us to start with that ask. If we're able to put a contract together so that the buyer knows that you all are starting on a particular date and we have that locked up for a close of escrow and you all are starting on the next day, like, dude, game over. Like that makes it so easy and a win for the buyer too. So thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a win all around. Works out well. That way we don't have to paint around furniture too.
Nice. What's up? How is painting around furniture? Is that like the best job ever?
It's more challenging. It'll definitely cost more.
That's
why we want to get in there and do it before they move in.
All right. So I'm planning on painting my house here in the next year. So you'd say that I should probably move all my furniture out before you guys come in and paint? Will it cost me less?
Maybe. It's probably not worth the cost, but so in an occupied house, what we ask owners to do is basically move out valuables, breakables, and knickknacks. You've got to take all your wall hangings off, like all your degrees and fancy diplomas. Those got to come down. Right?
I like how you use real world stuff, but you brought that into this. That was good.
Yeah. So I tell people, so I try to under promise and over deliver, right? And set realistic expectations. So I tell people it's pretty much like you're moving. The big furniture we'll cover and we'll slide the couch or the bed, but there is a lot of work that you need to be done if you expect us to come in and paint an occupied house.
Right.
And if we're just doing the walls, that's one thing. But if we're doing the ceilings too, the entire floor needs to get covered because of gravity. Paint's going to drop. So there's a whole nother level of masking involved. But even if we're just doing the walls, doors, and trim, you got to take everything down. And all the stuff on your bookshelf, like we can move that bookshelf, but we don't want to tip it over and knock over all your picture frames and stuff.
Right.
So it's a lot of work to prepare to have an occupied house painted. And then think about bedrooms. You got your kids in there, all the stuff that they've got in there, closets. Usually if we do an occupied house, those get excluded because closets is where all the junk goes. And it's not worth the time and energy. But it depends on the client and what they want. But there's a lot of work involved on the client's part to prepare for the painters to come in and do the job with any type of efficiency, right? Okay. There are certain situations when a client says, look, I don't have the ability or the means to move this stuff. We need help. And in which case we might call in a moving company to help out, or we might, if we feel like we can do it with limited risk, we might charge extra, but time is money one way or the other.
Dude, that makes sense. I appreciate you spelling that out because it makes it easier, right? When we're talking to people about it, the more we know, the easier it's going to be to lay it up for success. You know what I mean? Especially when we're like, I can't tell you how many times I've told somebody or given somebody some feedback, and then it's like the universe talking to you. So within the next week, you hear like a contradiction to what you told them to do, and you're like, ooh, I just told them to do I just suggested something else. Like I gotta call them. Like I hope they didn't do that because that's funny. Okay, last question. The paint in like a room like this, matching paint. We talk about this all the time, and you mentioned today like matching paint is not fun. Can you get into that a little bit? Because when I'm walking through with somebody, I'm like, no, this touch up, that ain't gonna work. And they're always like, what do you mean? From a painter's perspective, what are your thoughts?
So touch ups don't work. They just don't unless the house was painted very recently, maybe within the last year, and you still have the original buckets. So with paint, you might have a certain paint color, but if it's made at two different paint stores, the machines are calibrated very slightly differently. There's always a slight variance. So I might get the same color from two different Dunn Edwards stores, but there's going to be a slight variance in the color still, just because the machines are different.
Okay.
So that's number one. Number two, like a custom match, you had it painted a few years ago, you don't know what the colors are. Yeah, we can take a chip in and go get it matched, but it's not going to be perfect. So what happens is everywhere you put the brush or the roller on the wall, you see a spot, and that spot flashes. That's what we call flashing. It stands out. You got fresh paint. It's a little bit shiny because it's fresh, and most of the time it looks worse than the scuff mark that was there before because it just stands out more. So that's a common misconception that we get with people getting ready to sell the house. The first thing is, hey, I want you to come touch up my house so I can put it on the market. So we need to have an honest conversation that, about what I just said. They just don't work. What you need to do is paint corner to corner, okay, which works.
What's corner to corner?
An entire wall at a time, where you've got a 90-degree angle, because the difference, that slight difference in color, when you break that on a corner, the way the shadows hit, it's less noticeable.
Okay.
If you do it in the middle of a wall or in the middle of a ceiling, that's where it's most noticeable.
Okay.
Right? So the challenge is, when I walk through a house, we start looking at areas that they want touched up, and then we start saying, okay, this wall, that wall, this wall, that wall. Well, when you start looking at your walls, generally you're going to see scuff marks on most of the walls. So where do you start? Where do you stop? How do you identify a clear and cut scope of work that says, okay, we're going to paint these 20 walls in this house and not more, and communicating that to the crew, communicating it to the owner. So
no way, dude. No way.
Sometimes we can do it, right? It's possible, but
would it be cost effective like that? Like, doesn't sound cost effective at all.
It's just not efficient, right? I mean, we write up a detailed scope of work, identifying which walls get painted, which ones don't, so that there's no confusion. The last thing you want to do is hire a painter for a couple $1,000 or whatever, and you think you're going to get these 30 walls painted, and he's planning on doing a different 20. It's just, it doesn't work. So we write up a clear scope of work, as detailed as possible. You can identify them with tape, but it just gets convoluted. Usually by the time you get to that, you're looking at painting 75% of the house or more anyway. And at that point, you might as well just do it all, because if you're selling the home, do you really want the home buyer thinking that, you're doing things half-assed, you're doing this and not that, and what are you hiding or not doing that they don't know about? So every case is different, but that's a common thing that we see.
Nice, man. That totally makes sense. Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that stuff. Yeah, you're flipping nuggets of wisdom and on the painting world are helpful, dude. I love how you run your business. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Yeah, for sure. Here, stop recording.